The alien army mocked the human cadets. Then the battlefield fell silent. The laughter hit us before we even reached the ground. Our transport doors opened on Vethkara, and I heard it rising from the platform below, a deep, resonant sound that rolled through 700 Keth soldiers standing in formation. They were not trying to be cruel. That was the worst part. They were genuinely amused, the way you might be amused watching a house cat walk into a lion enclosure. My name is Mara Voss. I was 23 years old, and I was leading 40 human cadets down a landing ramp onto a moon we had never set foot on, in front of soldiers who had been fighting wars before my species had invented writing. I looked at my people, 40 humans in standard coalition gray, blinking against the hard white light, pale, thin-limbed, some of them barely old enough to shave. I looked at the Keth filling the platform, 7 feet tall, triple-jointed arms, exoskeletons the color of polished iron. They moved even at rest with a fluid precision that made my stomach drop. Sub-Marshal HFY walked the length of our line slowly. He stopped at the center, directly in front of me, and said nothing for a long time. His translator disc pulsed once. Then he spoke. "You are very small." More laughter from the gallery above. I kept my eyes forward. "Yes, sir," I said. "We are." He studied me for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. That was the entire welcome. The first week was exactly as bad as expected. The Keth did not go easy on us out of courtesy. They ran us through physical drills that were designed for bodies with twice our muscle density, lungs with twice our oxygen capacity, and reflexes built on 400 years of continuous military selection. We fell behind in every timed category. We failed standard formation exercises because our legs were simply not long enough to keep the required spacing at the required pace. One of my cadets, a quiet young man named Owen Briggs, collapsed on the third day from heat stress. 3 others followed by the end of the week. I did not file a single complaint, not because I was proud, because I was watching. The Keth were extraordinary soldiers. That part was completely true. But I noticed something in those early drills that I could not stop thinking about. When an exercise ran exactly as planned, the Keth were flawless, smooth and fast and absolute. But in the sessions where parameters shifted mid-drill, where a resource was cut or a communication channel was dropped without warning, they would pause, not long, 2, 3 seconds. But they would pause, recalibrate, check their doctrine, then proceed. My cadets did not pause. They had never been able to afford to. Without the physical edge, without the speed, without the centuries of refined doctrine, they had started inventing solutions from the very first day. Owen, even before his collapse, had found a way to cut 40 seconds off the supply route drill by using a terrain fold that the Keth training manual did not account for. A cadet named Lucy Hale had rewired the communications relay in our barracks so that we could monitor the Keth training frequencies without detection. Not because she was told to, because she was bored and desperate and it seemed useful. None of this was in any manual. None of it was taught. It was something older than training. HFY began watching me around week 3. Not constantly, but I would catch his gaze during drills, during meals, during the evening evaluations where the coalition observers reviewed each unit's performance. He never said anything to me. He simply watched with the same expression a scientist might use watching an unexpected result appear on a readout. The final evaluation was announced on a Tuesday, 72 hours. The full training range across Vethkara, 40 human cadets against a Keth veteran fire team. Coalition observers from 6 species in the gallery. The objective was a central installation. Whoever held it at the end of 72 hours won. The night before the simulation began, HFY found me in the corridor outside the briefing hall. He walked beside me for a moment without speaking, which I had come to understand was his version of an introduction. "I have run this simulation 214 times, he said. "My side has never lost." "I know," I said. "I am telling you because I respect efficiency. Knowing the odds allows you to allocate your effort appropriately." I nodded. "Has anyone ever run it the way we are going to run it?" He paused, half a step, then he resumed. "No," he said, "but there is a reason no one does." I did not tell him what the reason was. I also did not tell him what we were planning. The simulation began at dawn. We gave them the installation in the first 4 hours. The Keth took it quickly, efficiently, exactly as their doctrine prescribed. They fortified it. They established supply lines. They posted overlapping fields of coverage. It was a textbook hold, and from the gallery, I imagine it looked like the exercise was already over. It was not over. We split into 7 teams immediately after the retreat and went to ground across the training range. No central command. Every team had full authority to act on its own judgment, We were not trying to take the installation back. We were trying to make every moment of holding it feel like a punishment. Team 4, led by Owen, cut the eastern supply route at hour 9 and held it for 6 hours before pulling back. Team 2 hit the northern relay point twice in 4 hours, then vanished before the response units arrived. Lucy's team spent 18 hours doing nothing but moving, never holding ground, never engaging directly, just existing in places that made the Keth defensive perimeter meaningless. We did not sleep in shifts. We did not sleep at all. Humans had been pushing through exhaustion since before we had a name for it. We had run from predators across open plains for hours. We had hunted by outlasting. The Keth slept in precise rotation, 4 hours on, 4 hours monitored rest, a system so optimized it was almost beautiful. We burned through stimulant tabs and the strange focused calm that comes when your body has nothing left to give except clarity. At hour 52, I was lying flat in a drainage channel 300 meters from the installation, and I heard the Keth communications traffic go quiet. Not jammed, quiet. HFY had ordered his team to stop transmitting. I knew what that meant before I could put words to it. It meant he was thinking. It meant the situation had moved outside the boundaries of prepared responses. It meant that somewhere inside that installation, one of the finest military minds in the coalition was doing something his training had never truly required of him, improvising. I got on our channel and spoke quietly. They've stopped. Do not move. Let them feel it. 40 humans went still. The silence lasted 9 minutes. I counted them. 9 minutes where nothing moved on the range, where the wind moved the dust and the moon's low gravity made everything feel slightly unreal, and where 40 people who had been awake for 2 days lay in the dirt and breathed and waited. I have thought about that silence many times since. It was not the silence before a charge. It was not tactical quiet. It was the silence of a very precise mind encountering a question it had never been asked before and finding, for the first time, that it did not have an answer already prepared. At hour 61, HFY ordered a withdrawal. It was the correct decision. His position was technically held but functionally untenable. The simulation parameters registered it as a loss for his side. In the gallery above the range, observers from 6 different species did not make a sound. The debrief took place 2 hours later. HFY stood at the front of the room and walked through his team's performance with the same measured precision he applied to everything. He identified every error. He assigned no blame that was not accurate. He was not diminished by the loss. He was studying it. Then he stopped and looked at us. "I have one question," he said, "for the humans." The room went quiet. "When did you decide you were willing to lose in order to win?" I looked at him for a moment. Owen was sitting 2 seats to my left, dark circles under his eyes, dried mud still on his collar. Lucy was beside him, asleep with her head on her arms, and nobody had woken her. "We were not willing to lose," I said. "We just were not afraid of it." HFY was still for a long moment. Then he tilted his head. It was a small motion. I did not know then what it meant. A coalition liaison told me afterward, quietly, that it was roughly equivalent to, "I will remember this." We flew home 11 days later. The Keth honor guard stood at attention as we boarded, not because it was required. It was not required. HFY had ordered it. People ask me what it felt like. They expect me to say it felt like victory. It did not feel like victory. It felt like being understood for the first time by someone who had every reason not to bother. The Keth had laughed at us when we arrived, and I had agreed with them. We were small. We were soft. We had no business being on that moon with those soldiers. Everything they assumed about us was, by any measurable standard, correct. But here is what nobody tells you about humans. The thing that gets left out when other species look at us and run the numbers and decide we do not add up. We have been small and soft and outmatched for longer than most civilizations have existed. We ran from things that wanted to eat us and we kept running. We lost fights and came back and lost them again and came back again. We learned to make losing expensive. We learned to make surviving feel like a strategy. We did not beat the Keth that day because we were better soldiers. We beat them because we had been practicing for something like this our entire existence, and we had never even known we were practicing. I still think about that 9-minute silence sometimes, late at night, when I cannot sleep. I think we are very good at not sleeping.